If you don't know exactly what's slow before you start changing code, you're probably changing the wrong thing. Hey everyone, I was a bit nervous to make this video because I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer. I was on a mini rant about this at work the other day, so I thought I'd clean it up and speak about it here on YouTube. So a little bit of background about me. I worked as a front-end engineer for NFL.com for a few years, and I was part of the team that delivered the new redesigned NFL.com. Specifically, I worked on the front-end DevOps and performance side of the project. It was actually a great gig because we were very early users of React at the NFL. So we had our own server-side rendering solution called Wildcat. And you might ask yourself, like, why did you code this? Well, this was like 2 years before NextJs came out, so there was no other server-side rendered React solution at the time. You had to make your own. Since we were so early on the tech side with React and server-side rendering, we got to solve a lot of cool new tech problems that people hadn't run into before, especially on the performance side. So my coworker and I spent months tweaking the page load speed for NFL.com, experimenting with technologies like jspm, serving unbundled assets at the time because HTTP2 was supposed to make that better. Then after we realized that actually in reality wasn't giving us a good performance boost, went back to serving bundled assets with Webpack, checking our progress with the Chrome developer tools, fixing memory leaks on the Node.js server side by looking at AppDynamics reports, the whole 9 yards. Like, I easily spent months trying to optimize these performance things. So I've been there. We shipped NFL.com and it looked great, it loaded quick. We were leveraging progressive web app technology at the time, right as it was being introduced. So it supported offline mode on people's phones. We did some really cool tricks to make transitioning from page to page quick. The website would kind of like load as a server-side rendered website, but once you got in, it was a single page app. And we had automatic checks set up to measure the bundle size to make sure like the performance wouldn't degrade, like increasing the file size. So we had a bunch of these checks. We had this great lighthouse score, and nobody cared. The tech was great, but it wasn't until I joined my current company and started learning about A/B testing and measuring features based on the revenue impact that I realized where my mistake was. I couldn't prove the work we did actually made any material financial impact anywhere back at the NFL. I mean, I could pull up the before and after lighthouse score from my desktop computer, but I didn't have a chart or report to show that this impacted profits or costs or really anything other than like how fast it loaded on my machine. That's why I implore any engineer, like, the most important thing you can do is you got to hit the like button and smash the notification bell. Yes, only then will you have a fast and stable website. For real though, I tell every engineer, make sure you set up the analytics first before you start doing any performance work. For high traffic sites, this could mean setting up like a Grafana chart to measure exactly when the first line of text loaded. When I was working on a personality quiz project at work, our main performance question was the time it took the answer question button to become clickable. Inside the JavaScript, I set up a little beacon that would write the load time for that button to a database. And we created shard to load the 95th and 99th percentile times for this across thousands of users. Now you might ask yourself, like, James, why don't you just measure the DOM content loaded? I actually tried this first, but the metrics I got back were too all over the place. That's because modern websites don't really load once anymore. There's usually activity in the background, fetching more data, rendering other ads on the page, etc. So your DOM content loaded time might say something as high as like 2 minutes. Instead, I recommend picking what you'd consider the most important part of your website or app and measuring that. Right now I work on an Android search engine app, and the measure we use is the time it takes for the search bar to become touchable from when the user opens it up from their Android desktop. If you work on an e-commerce site, this will probably be the time it takes for the checkout button to load. If you work on an internal tool that only 10 people use, you probably don't need all these charts. So instead, you could send out a survey to all 10 people with one question, like from 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the load time? And then send out another survey after you fix the load time and see if you can increase those numbers. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you gotta measure something because you gotta show some progress after you've worked on it to business people. This also helps because I'll see well-intentioned engineers spend days, sometimes weeks, optimizing a part of code, but not actually measuring the result as they go. So oftentimes, they'll be changing things blindly. If you don't know exactly what's slow before you start changing code, you're probably changing the wrong thing. You really gotta measure twice and cut once for these kind of tasks. So hopefully I've helped. Hopefully my story helped a little bit. Don't make the same mistakes I've done. Make sure you set yourself up for success with data whenever possible, especially for tasks like this that can be really, really time consuming and not show much visual difference. It's really important to explain to a business person exactly why you're doing something before you sink a month's worth of time and effort into it. Thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've ever run into a similar problem at work before. Remember, hit like, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell to become part of the notification squad. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next video.